One of the greatest values about playing football is the ability to be versatile and play multiple positions. The Detroit Lions could potentially be looking to select a player of just such a nature in the 2024 NFL Draft, and we're going to talk about it in this episode, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, all Lions fans, and I just want to say to everyone, welcome back once again to another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, here's the thing, folks. For those that have played the game of football, for those that have played the sport, if there is one thing that we know is that when you're out playing on the field, when you're out with your other teammates or with your coaches or whatever the thing is, or even if you're just talking football, when it comes to the game of football, there have been a literal myriad of different adages that have remained tried and true when it comes to the sport, and they have remained that way throughout the course of time. And when you think about it, one of the most applicable adages is that has remained especially true even in today's version of the game that it is now is the ability to have versatility on a football field as a player. Like I said, for anyone who has ever played the sport, especially those that played in middle school, those that played in high school, and even some in college, most of us will remember that when we played the sport in middle school and high school, or however you want to call it, because I know for some people they call it primary school, secondary school, whatever the case might be. Some of us will remember that when we played the sport back in those days, you would be typical to play both offense and defense, and sometimes even you'd also play special teams. So there were times where you were not coming out of the game. For myself personally, when I played in high school and middle school, I was on the field almost nonstop. I was a kickoff kicker, I was on defense, I was on offense, I played multiple positions on both sides of the ball. Defensive line, linebacker, tight end, quarterback. I was even sometimes thrown in as a slot wide receiver, whatever the case might be. When I was in high school, I was one of those guys that was considered a jack of all trades. I was literally a Swiss Army knife. I literally could do whatever the coaches asked me to do. And when you think about it, for coaches, players that are like this, they are extremely valuable. They are highly coveted because what they do as a coach is they give you that added flexibility to be able to coach and manage the roster for game planning, because it's like, listen, I've got a guy that I can literally plug and play in multiple positions. That's going to give me a lot more flexibility in how I'm going to go about potentially making the roster set up, and also how the game plan for whoever I'm going to play is going to work, because it's like, listen, they can do a lot of different things for the team. Now, like I said, that's typically middle school and high school football. However, though, by the time you get to college, this is usually done in most part because most players, once they kind of move off of high school and they get into college, they usually decide to specialize on one singular position or one side of the football rather than two or more. And usually, I would almost say by the time you get to the NFL, this is almost completely 100% true. You just don't really find a whole lot of players in the college or even in the NFL ranks that usually have this ability to play both offense and defense. They usually become specialized on one or the other. But on the rare occasion, there are some times where you will find a player who does actually have the ability, that has the possession of being a dual threat player or a two-way player on a football team. And in this NFL's draft, there's a couple of players, but I would say this, one of the best ones that I have seen, and one that the Detroit Lions have expressed an interest in, is this one, and that is Vaki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But if you think about it, Vaki, this is a guy that literally I think is right up the Lions Avenue when you are talking about a guy that, one, has a multitude of ways to play the game of football, but at the same time, this is a dude that literally, again, I always look for this primarily above all else, is a guy that personifies Dan Campbell's type of football player, that hits that ideology, that hits that grit mindset, that hits a hard-working player. And we're going to talk about him now for the next couple of minutes here. But when we take a look at Vaki, Vaki is a safety that has primarily played his last 2 years at Utah. Now, some people are instantly going to right away say, well, wait a minute, he only played 2 years in college? Well, okay, let's back up here. First and foremost, we have to understand something about Vaki's personal life. He is a Mormon. He is a part of the Latter-day Saints movement. He spent 2 years on a mission for the church, and that was why he wasn't playing football. But again, the 2 years that he did play at Utah, he put up some impressive performances. He put up some impressive tape, so that's why we're talking about him. I just wanted to make sure I got that cleared. I got that set out there right away. Again, there's a reason why we only have 2 years of college production from this gentleman, and the reason why is because he was out following something that he believes, and that I think that is an honorary thing to bring up. Whether or not you believe in the same thing, whether or not you hold to the same truths or belief systems that he does, it's still something that you should give the young man recognition for. Now, outside of that, let's start talking about the physical components of him. Number one, at the NFL Combine, this guy was listed at 5'11", 210 pounds. So if we understand that right off the bat, this dude has got both solid height as a safety, but he's also got solid weight for that role. So again, very good size for the role of safety. But here's what I'm going to say. As we are going to find out as we go further and further into this guy's profile, Vaki is not just a safety prospect. He's also a running back, kind of like a slot hybrid guy. This guy can do a multitude of things on the field. So again, you're looking at a guy that has the size to literally be a hybrid player. This guy literally can fit into a multitude of different positions just based on his size alone. Now, another reason why Vaki is a bit of an interesting prospect physically is because I know for some people who are instantly going to start watching this, the first thing they're going to key off on when it comes to Vaki is his 40 time. When he went to the Combine, his 40 time was very, very disappointing, not just as a safety, but also as a running back. He ran a 4.62. That is not very good, folks. And I know for a lot of people, as soon as they see that 40 time, that is instantaneously going to turn them off to talking about Vaki because they want somebody who's at least got a sub 4.5 rather than a plus 4.5 when it comes to the 40-yard time. However, though, I'm going to explain why I think that 40-yard time is a little bit deceptive. But if you take a look at every other testing parameter that he had when he was at the Combine, his 10-yard split, his vertical, his bench press, all of those were extremely impressive. If I recall correctly, I think they were in the top 5 of all other safeties that were testing at the Combine. So it's like, listen, was his 40 time not the greatest? Yeah, it wasn't the greatest. I'll agree with you. But everything else that he did was absolutely impressive. And again, like I said, I understand many are kind of turned off to the whole 40-yard time. But for me, when you start taking a look at his game film, you start taking a look at his tape, you are going to get a much better ability to measure how truly fast this guy is and what I would call game speed versus, drill speed. Because when you're out on a field and you're playing in a game, you're going to hit a whole different level. You're going to hit a whole another little notch rather than what you're doing as far as a drill is concerned. Now, then there is the whole component of Vaki's draft status, if you will. Again, I have been doing the mock draft simulators quite a bit. And again, I've said this before, I am going to say it again. I understand mock draft simulators are not reality, but they are usually a pretty good indicator about where you can see a prospect potentially falling in the draft. Obviously, of course, there's always what I would call the odd blue falcon, one that either slips up or just freaking rises up the draft boards and gets drafted somewhere we were not expecting them to go. But for the most part, draft analyzers like these mock draft simulators will usually give you a pretty good idea of where to expect these guys to go. Before the combine, Vaki was considered to be somewhere that would most likely go in the late second round, maybe the early third round. However, though, if you take a look at him right now, he has fallen all the way to being a potential late third rounder to an early fourth rounder. So again, for a lot of people, I think the combine performance really turned them off to his whole idea of being a top prospect. But again, I'm going to remind you all something here. If there's one thing we know as Lions fans about Brad Holmes, it's like, listen, if he is a guy that fits their idea of what is a good player, if he's a guy that fits their ideology, if he's a guy that fits their culture, they don't care what anybody tells them. Because Holmes knows talent when he sees it. Campbell knows a football player when he sees him. And again, the one thing about Vaki that I really like is that he's considered the 101st best prospect in this year's draft. Well, if you think about it, he's usually going just outside of the top 100. That right there tells me that for Brad Holmes, you could have the potential to get a a top 100 player, and you could get them at a great discount, which means you're finding great value for a player that could be a phenomenal find in the later rounds. Again, this is something that Brad Holmes does very well in finding draft steals in the later rounds that could really help out the football team when other people have kind of been like, not really, we're not really interested because he doesn't meet the measurable side of things. It's like, listen, the measurables, they will guide you some part of the way. But you have to also take a look at what the guy's doing on the football field in comparison to a whole bunch of other things. That's why I go as deep into these analyses as that I can. I don't even know if that's a word, but into these analyses that I can every single time I get in front of the camera for y'all. Speaking of that analysis, let's take a look at the overall question that I think a lot of people are now going to start wondering when it comes to Vaki, is that can he translate his ability to be a dual threat player in the NFL, or will he need to focus more so on just one or the other? Here's my assessment. Can Vaki do both in the NFL? Yes, he could. But in my opinion, the better question is whether or not will he be successful as a dual player rather than just focusing on one or the other. Because again, we have seen players in the past in the NFL that have had the ability to play both sides of the football. The real question is not whether can they, it's whether they're successful at doing it. Because there's a lot of guys, okay, yeah, I can go out and play defense or I can go out and play offense. But I can tell you this, playing both is very stressful. It's very hard to do as a successful ball player. That's why a lot of people focus on just one side or the other. Now, here's why I asked this question. If you take a look at Vaki's statistics, you go to PFF, and I'm going to show a picture of you guys this, so that way you guys can understand where I'm going with this. If you go back to his first year when he played football at Utah, he was absolutely superb on the defense. He absolutely was killing it. Take a look at his grades from his 2022 season in comparison on defense to 2023. There's a massive drop-off in his ability to play defense, at least from PFF, in terms of the grades. And the reason why is because in 2023, at least in my opinion, he went from being solely a defensive player, where he was focusing on just what it was like to be a safety. Then in 2023, when he started playing offense alongside it, his defensive ability to play kind of got hurt. It kind of diminished because now he was trying to play both sides of the football. But I understand for some people, they're like, well, David, didn't you just make your point? No, because you need to take a look at what this guy was able to do as an offensive playmaker. As an offensive playmaker, this guy made a lot of great plays for the Utah Ball Club. Again, think about this. Vaki only performed in 76 total snaps. He only had 76 total offensive snaps for Utah. And in those 76 snaps, he had 42 rushing attempts for 317 yards, 7.5 an average a rush, and 2 rushing touchdowns, plus 11 receptions for 203 receiving yards, 18.5 an average a catch, and 3 receiving touchdowns. So think about that. Think about the math on that one. In 53 times that Vaki touched the ball as an offensive player, he scored a touchdown almost 10% of the time. And he averaged almost 10 yards per time he touched the football, either as a receiver or as a runner. The point of the matter is that Vaki, as an offensive playmaker, he has big playmaking potential. You can't be that good to have that much production in that limited of touches and not have the ability to sit back and be like, man, if we got this guy included even on just a couple of plays, what kind of damage could he really do? And again, I'm going to just show you guys the ability that this guy has, both offensive and defensive, pardon me, I'm getting really excited here, in terms of his video highlights. Take a look at some of these video highlights. You're seeing this guy's ability to make tackles. You're seeing this guy's tenacity as a tackler, his ability to be good in coverage, blaying the wood on some of these wide receivers and running backs that are coming on the offensive side of the ball towards him on defense. But then, when you flip it on the opposite end, you take a look at his ability to play offense. He's out there making runs, sometimes out of the wildcat. He's going out of the backfield as a pure running back. And then there are times we're seeing him go out there and he's making catches, and it's like, wait a minute here. This is a guy that's supposed to be a safety, but he's going out there and he's making catches as a wide receiver. How is he able to do this? The reason why is because in high school, he also played slot wide receiver. So this guy has really, really good hands for a safety. And again, my whole point is, as the highlights have shown, as the data I have shown, is this. This is a guy that really has the ability to do both. The question, as I said, is can he do both successfully in the NFL? That's why I said the obvious question for a lot of people that are watching this, whether they're Lions fans or not, and are interested in Vaki, is if the Lions should select him, or if any team selects him, but I'm talking about the Lions here, would the Lions be more smart to let him just be, a one-trick pony, and I'm talking about on offense or defense, or should they allow him to do both? And I think the primary answer for this is that I think the Lions are going to want him to play safety primarily because, well, as we already know, the Lions need safety help a little bit more than they need wide receiver help. And I believe the Lions are going to draft a wide receiver or get a wide receiver anyway. So for me, it's like that is something that I think is more important right now because Campbell himself said that they're looking for more safety help. But I also believe that for a guy that has the playmaking potential on offense that Vaki has, the Lions would be absolutely foolish if they didn't let Ben Johnson take a look at what this guy can do and use him in maybe a trick play, a gadget play or two or here or there, so that way they could really fully exploit what this offensive dual threat player has to offer. And that's why I think the Lions would love this guy because it's like, listen, he's a great safety when he primarily focuses on just being a safety. But if you throw him out there and you use him in a gadget play, whether it's as a receiver or as a running back, a wildcat formation, whatever the case might be, you've really got something special where a lot of teams are going to be like, okay, this guy can be a weapon for us in a multitude of ways. But anyway, folks, I figured I'd just put this episode together because I saw this guy and I'm like, man, this guy's special. This guy has got something that is really, really unique and is really, really valuable. So I figured I'd put the video together for y'all. But having said that, I'm now going to end this episode and say thank you all once again for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, please do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. Again, I want to highly encourage y'all please to subscribe. We've almost gotten to 6,000 subscribers. We are literally this close to getting back to where DLF used to be about a year or so ago. Let's keep moving on. Let's keep adding more to the rank of MCM. And I'm so thankful for everybody that have been with me since the beginning, from when I was with DLF to now. But let's keep pushing. Let's keep making it out there. And with that, I want to encourage y'all, please, to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. But also, after you've shared it and you've subscribed, please make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content. Like I also said, please share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everyone and anyone you can. The more we share it, the more we spread it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to tell you all, you guys are an awesome, amazing community. I'm thankful for each and every one of y'all. Thank you all for being just the way you are. You guys are just truly, truly wonderful. I hope y'all have something that makes you happy. Hope y'all have something that makes you smile. And I also hope you all enjoyed the content. And with that, I just want to say, everyone, God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.